We were talking about the sound before, the sound of the 80s, you know, like the thing with like having a band and having an idea and then going to a studio and working with a producer and kind of like having to, I don't know if conform is the word, but like follow a lead from someone who was dictating what the sound was all about. Is it something that is a reflection that you do after all these years, or even at the time were you aware of that? You're like, oh, this sound is different. Like,
well, at the time when I started, we're now talking about like 1980, 81, 82, you know, moving to Auckland and trying to get a record deal. So, you know, the whole dynamic was very different then. So the only way that you could actually, you know, find an audience was to get a record deal and go into what they called a, you know, inverted commas, professional studio. So then you're sort of at the behest of a producer who obviously knows more than the rest of us. Or that was always the premise, wasn't it? And then they will shape what the band, the live band is. So we had a live band and we toured and we toured and we toured, and then you go into the studio and in some respects, unfortunately, what comes out is not really what the live band. It doesn't really represent the live band. It's a more sort of cultured, or it's a twisted version, probably a more polite version of what we were, you know, as a band. So, and you defer your authority to them. Well, we did in those days, you know. So quite often what you had as a recording really wasn't as raw and compelling as what we did as a band.
Were you guys trying to reproduce something similar to what was recorded, or like when you were live you had more autonomy and you were like, no, that's what we're doing here?
Yeah, when we were live, that was us, you know, that was us, and it was more powerful. And I don't think, in a lot of respects, we never really captured that as the Mockers in the early 80s on record at all. You know, because I think it was slightly sort of distorted by production values of the time. I mean, when I listen back to the 80s, you know, I can pick an 80s song just by the snare drum, you know, you know, the way it's done, the gate, the AMS delay, everything, you know, it's and the lack of cymbals on records from that period, you know, and that was just the production values that were being you know, enforced in a way, you know.
Were you comfortable writing? Did you have support?
Yeah.
Would people come and also give ideas or ask you to change things?
No, never. No, writing was autonomous.
That's the,
you know, there was never
that's
any
the sacred place.
Yeah. Never in interference with writing. Writing was just us. You know, that was all good. Yeah. But it was just when it came to recordings, you know, things would slightly become something else, and sometimes it would be better, you know, it would be bigger than you expected, but it was sort of taken out of your hands. Whereas today, it's way more in our own hands, you know. Like my latest album, Act Normal, you know, came out 2020. That's me, you know, and that's the way I want it, and I'm totally in control. And I love the technology now that you can just do it yourself on your laptop. And you are in control, you know, and you're not, and you haven't got the money meter running in the corner that says you've got to stop now, and that's what you've got, you know, and that's the way it was in the 80s, you know. It was just like, that was so expensive to make an album, but now you can take your time and get it the way you want it, even if you haven't got an audience.
It's about the passion, right? Do you think, like, did a lot of artists and musicians get fucked over in that deal of like just following whatever people were telling you to do? Or
I don't know. I think maybe they did, maybe they didn't, you know. Ultimately, everyone who hasn't got an audience wants an audience, you know. I mean, you write a song and you want an audience, you know. And if you've got an audience, look what can happen. You know, it can be your life.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful life. If all you have to do is tour for the rest of your life, that would be ideal, wouldn't it? You know, because people love your songs, you know. But if you haven't got that, well, you know, you haven't got that.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you still, it doesn't stop the inspiration for writing songs and controlling the way the song is produced and putting it out. You know, ultimately, it's all about having a body of work. I think, you know, you've got a body of work, which is a whole lot of songs, and for good or bad, that's what it is.